Have you ever met someone and within moments felt like your entire world just shifted? It wasn't love at first sight. No, it was something deeper, something magnetic, like gravity itself had decided to pull you into her orbit. You weren't just drawn to her, you were claimed by her smile, her eyes, her energy. Every word she said felt loaded with meaning. Every glance felt like a secret invitation. And for the first time in a long time, you felt chosen. She made you feel like you were the only man in the world. She listened with intensity, laughed like your jokes were gold, touched your arm like it meant something. You told yourself, this is different. This isn't just chemistry, it's destiny. You weren't looking for it, but it found you, and it felt divine. So you opened up, you shared things you hadn't told anyone. You made space in your life for her. You gave and gave and gave. Not because you had to, but because it felt like finally. Someone saw the man you really were, and for a while it was perfect. But then something shifted. It was subtle at first. The text became shorter. The enthusiasm faded. The warmth you once felt now felt transactional. You brushed it off. Everyone gets busy, you told yourself. But the silence grew, the distance expanded, and before you could understand what happened, she was gone. No closure, no explanation, just a void, where once there was magic. You replay every moment, over and over. Was it something you said? Something you didn't do? Was it too much? Not enough? Your mind becomes a courtroom. You judge yourself, sentence yourself. And the verdict always lands on, you weren't enough. But what if I told you it wasn't about you? What if I told you the seduction wasn't love? What if I told you that it was hunger dressed up as connection? This is where it begins. The unraveling of the illusion, the journey into truth, and it starts with understanding. The way she looked at you like you were everything wasn't about you. It was about how she wanted to feel. She didn't fall for who you are. She fell for the mirror you held up, the reflection she needed to see just long enough to feel alive again. And when that reflection stopped giving her the high, she left, not because you failed, but because the fantasy faded. This is not a love story. It's the first chapter of waking up, and it hurts like hell, but it's only the beginning. If you've ever lived this chapter, if this feels like your story, type in the comments, yes. Let the world know you're not alone. You thought it was love. You thought it was mutual connection, that rare, once-in-a-lifetime alignment of chemistry, timing, and fate. But what if I told you it wasn't love at all? It was a hunger, ancient, unconscious, and unspoken. You see, behind her laughter, her eyes, her warmth, there was something deeper pulling the strings, a force even she couldn't name, a psychological engine running in the background, hidden even from herself. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of us that contains everything we deny, suppress, or refuse to see. And for many women, buried deep within that shadow, is a hunger that has nothing to do with romance, not sexual hunger, not physical need, but emotional consumption. It's the craving to feel significant, to feel validated, to feel chosen over and over and over again. But no matter how much is given, it's never enough. Because it's not about the man, it's not about you. It's about silencing a voice inside her that whispers, you're not enough. You're not lovable unless someone proves it to you again, and again, and again. Attention becomes like oxygen. Admiration becomes a drug. And you're just the next hit. You didn't know this. She didn't know this. But the shadow always knows. It lures, it consumes, it discards. And when the high fades, the hunger returns, more ravenous than before. Here's the terrifying part. She wasn't manipulating you, not consciously. In fact, she probably believed every word she said, every promise, every I love you. But that's what makes it so dangerous, because it wasn't her loving you. It was the shadow loving what you gave her, your attention, your adoration, your validation. You became the mirror, and once the mirror lost its shine, she shattered it. This hunger isn't evil. It's not intentional cruelty. It's a wound that never healed. And until that wound is seen, named, and healed, no man will ever be enough, because what she's looking for isn't a partner. She's looking for a cure, but she's treating people like medicine. And when the medicine stops working, she moves on. You were not chosen because you were you. You were chosen because you were new. Because in the beginning, your presence silenced the void, but the void always returns. And when it does, so does the hunger. You gave her everything, your time, your presence, your love. You showed up day after day, trying to prove that you were enough, that you were safe, that you were different. And for a while it worked. She smiled. She opened up. She said you made her feel special, desired, seen. You believed you had unlocked something sacred, that maybe, finally, this was love that could last. But slowly, something shifted. The smile faded, the spark dimmed. Your texts felt like echoes, your gifts felt like obligations, and you stood there, heart in hand, wondering, why isn't this enough anymore? Here's the brutal truth. Because it never was. Not because you were lacking, not because your love wasn't real, but because what she was seeking can't be found outside herself. In Jungian psychology, this is the tragedy of the unconscious. When we carry an unhealed wound, the shadow begins to seek from the world what only the self can provide. She wasn't craving your presence, she was craving relief from her own emptiness. And your attention, as warm, as genuine, as real as it was, became a drug, not because she's shallow, but because she's starving. And when the starving don't know how to feed themselves, they consume others. But the problem with using others to fill an internal void is that it never lasts. The human psyche adapts. The dopamine fades. What once felt like water now feels like sand. And here's where you suffer. You try harder. You love deeper. You believe that if you just do a little more, she'll come back. But the void isn't yours to fill. No man can love someone out of their shadow. No man can offer enough presence to silence a hunger that lives in silence itself. Because what she needs isn't more from you. It's more of herself. And until she meets her own pain, your love will only serve as a pause button. A beautiful, selfless pause, but a pause nonetheless. And when she unpauses, you're left behind. Confused, drained, and feeling like you were never enough, but you were. She just wasn't available for the love she claimed to seek. Because real love begins inside. If you've been there, giving more than you had, hoping it would finally be enough, type in the comments, never again. You deserve love that doesn't expire when the high fades. You were once her world. She lit up when you walked into the room. Her eyes searched for you in every crowd. She reached for your hand like it grounded her in something real. And then, she didn't. One day you wake up and everything's changed. The texts are colder. The voice is flatter. The eyes that once sparkled with warmth now look through you, as if you're no longer real. And you stand there, heart pounding, mind racing, wondering, what did I do? Did I say the wrong thing? Was I too much, too little, too late? But no answer ever feels right. Because here's the truth no one tells you. You didn't do anything wrong. You were simply no longer useful to the shadow. In the beginning, you were worshipped, not because of who you are, but because of what your presence represented. You were new, you were validating, you were a mirror that reflected back her beauty, her worth, her desirability. But over time, that mirror stopped reflecting what she needed to see, and instead, it started showing the truth, that no amount of love could cover the emptiness. And so the discarding begins, not with cruelty, but with quiet, not with explosions, but with silence. The same woman who once told you that you were her safe space now rolls her eyes when you speak. The same one who used to laugh at your texts now leaves you on read, and when you ask what changed, she might say, "I don't know, it's just different now." Because to her conscious mind, that's true. She doesn't know why the affection is gone, but her shadow does. It knows that the high has faded, that your attention has been metabolized, and now it's time to find the next source of relief. You became disposable, not because you lacked value, but because she never truly saw you to begin with. She saw the fantasy, she loved the distraction, she craved the escape. And when your stability replaced her chaos, she mistook peace for boredom. And she ran. The worst part, she might not even realize she's doing it. To her, it feels like something changed. But in truth, something ended. The illusion, the fantasy, the temporary fix. And you're left in the rubble, wondering how you went from king to ghost. But hear me now. You were never the problem. You were just the mirror. And once the reflection stopped soothing her pain, she had to break it. If you've ever been shattered by this cycle, loved, then left without warning, type, "I was the mirror." Because naming it is how we begin healing it. You were everything they said a good man should be: consistent, present, emotionally safe. You listened when she spoke. You showed up when she needed. You offered peace in a world full of noise. And yet, she pulled away. The same woman who once melted in your arms now shrugs you off. The one who said you were different now seems irritated by your very presence. And you're left wondering, shouldn't stability make her feel secure? Isn't that what she wanted? Yes and no. Because if she's operating from an unhealed shadow, emotional safety doesn't feel like love. It feels like a trap. See, when someone grows up in chaos or carries unresolved emotional wounds, peace feels unfamiliar, uncomfortable, even threatening. Why? Because stability creates stillness. And in that stillness, the voice inside gets louder, the voice that says, "You're not enough. You're unlovable unless someone is chasing you. You only matter when you're being desired." So instead of leaning into calm, she craves intensity. Drama becomes dopamine, uncertainty becomes excitement, and you, steady, loving, reliable you, become boring. But here's what she can't see. The boredom isn't about you. It's about the silence you create, because in your presence there is no chaos to distract her, no games to keep her high, no emotional ping-pong to feed her nervous system's addiction to instability. And that silence, it terrifies her, because in that quiet the shadow speaks, and it says, "You are empty, you are scared, you don't know how to sit with yourself." So she runs. Not towards something better, but towards something louder, because in the noise she doesn't have to listen. And that's the tragic truth most men never hear. You weren't too boring, you were too real, too grounded, too healing, and healing hurts when you're not ready for it. So she labels you dull, predictable, safe, as if safety were a flaw. But don't let that twist your worth. You are not boring. You are peace in a world that mistakes chaos for connection. And one day, someone will be ready for that. Someone whose soul craves quiet. Someone who's already met her shadow and survived it. If you've ever been left for being too nice, too stable, or too calm, type, "Peace isn't boring," because your softness is not a sin. It's your strength. She told you she didn't need anyone. She moved through the world with confidence, sharp eyes, sharp words, and a sharper edge. She paid her own bills, made her own rules, and made it clear she answers to no one. And you believed her. Because how could you not? She seemed so self-contained, so powerful, so in control. But slowly, The cracks showed. One moment, she clung to your warmth like it was air. The next, she pushed you away like you were the problem. One night she whispered, "Don't leave me." And by morning she acted like you never existed. You were caught in a dance, between distance and desperation, between "I don't need you" and "Why don't you fight for me?" And you started to realize something. Her independence wasn't strength, it was armor. A mask built not from empowerment, but from fear. See, Carl Jung taught that the psyche protects itself when it feels unsafe. It builds walls, creates personas, masks, and for many women, especially those carrying deep wounds of betrayal, abandonment, or rejection, that mask becomes hyper-independence. It says, if I don't need anyone, I can't be hurt. If I stay in control, I can't be left. If I never open up, they'll never see how broken I feel. And so the performance begins. She becomes the strong one, the untouchable one, but beneath that performance is a woman terrified of being truly seen. Because true intimacy means exposure. It means silence, stillness, eye contact, and no place left to hide. That's why she runs when you get too close. That's why she accuses you of being too much when you ask for connection. That's why the moment things start to feel real, she disappears. Because love threatens to reveal the shadow she's spent her life outrunning. And you? You weren't rejected because you were weak. You were rejected because you were safe enough to trigger her deepest fear, that someone might actually see the emptiness and love her anyway. But to her shadow, that's too dangerous, too vulnerable, too risky. So she pushes you out before you can walk away, before you can see behind the mask, and you're left wondering, why am I being punished for loving her well? Here's the answer. You weren't. You were just too close to the truth. If you've ever been pushed away by someone right after they pulled you close, type, "I saw the mask," because love isn't scary. What's scary is being seen. This is the part that hurts the most. Not the silence, not the coldness, not even the goodbye, but the questions that echo after she's gone. Was I not enough? Did I love too much, or not the right way? Was it something I said, or something I didn't do? Why did she choose me, only to erase me? You replay it all. Every smile, every fight, every second of closeness that felt like something sacred, and now feels like a setup. You search for the exact moment it all fell apart, the moment you failed. But what if I told you, you didn't fail, because it was never about you in the first place. You were not the cause. You were the canvas. She painted a version of herself she wanted to believe in, and you reflected that back. In the beginning, your presence made her feel alive, desired, worthy, safe. Not because you were perfect, but because she was projecting hope onto you. And then, when your presence no longer covered her wounds, when your attention no longer masked the emptiness, you stopped being the canvas and became the mirror. And the moment you reflected the truth, the pain, the void, the hunger she refused to face, you became a threat. Not because you said the wrong thing, but because you stayed long enough to see behind the performance, and so the unconscious did what it always does when the shadow is exposed. It shattered the mirror. It discarded you. Not because you were unworthy, but because you were too real. You didn't fail her, you just couldn't save her from herself. And here's the most brutal truth of all. You were never supposed to, because that was never your burden to carry. That was never your battle to fight. You were not her healer. You were not her therapist. You were not her emotional detox. You were a man who offered real love in a space that only wanted relief. And that is not your failure. That's her unfinished war with herself, the one she's still avoiding, by moving on to someone new, telling herself this time will be different, until the pattern repeats again. But now you know, now you see. It wasn't your job to prove your worth. It was your opportunity to remember it. You're standing at a crossroads now. One path is familiar. You've walked it before, chasing, hoping, bending, becoming smaller just to feel loved again. You know where that road ends. In exhaustion, in confusion, in silence that feels like punishment. But there's another path, and it begins with a question only you can answer. Are you ready to stop chasing someone else's shadow and start healing your own? Because that's the truth you've been running from, that all this pain, this cycle, this longing for someone to finally stay, wasn't just about her. It was also about you, the part of you that believed love had to be earned, the part of you that thought if you just tried hard enough, they'd finally choose you. The part of you that mistook survival for devotion. But love, real love, doesn't ask you to suffer first. And now, you get to choose. Do you keep running toward people who are running from themselves? Or do you turn inward and become the person you were waiting for? Do you keep trying to be the solution to a problem that never belonged to you? Or do you finally put the pieces back into your own hands? Because you can't fix her emptiness. You can't outlove someone's avoidance. You can't outgive someone's addiction to chaos. But you can choose peace. You can reclaim your worth. You can say, no more. No more being the emotional trash bin for someone else's unprocessed wounds. No more begging to be seen by someone who's blind to their own reflection. No more shrinking your light to keep someone from feeling uncomfortable in the dark. This is your turning point. Not because you need revenge or closure or proof, but because you're finally ready to stop outsourcing your value. You don't need to be chosen to matter. You don't need to be needed to feel alive. You don't need to be wanted to be worthy. You already are. And once you see that, really see that, the cycle ends. Not because she changed, but because you did. If you're ready to choose yourself this time, type no more cycles. You don't need another heartbreak to finally come home to yourself. You've seen the pattern. You've lived the heartbreak. You've been the mirror, the placeholder, the temporary cure. And now the question isn't, why did she do it? It's, what do I do now? Because once you've seen the shadow, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending this was just bad luck or bad timing or bad chemistry. You know what this was. It was the unconscious in motion, hers, and maybe yours too, because the truth is, we all carry a shadow. Carl Jung didn't just write about it, he lived it. He warned that what we refuse to face within ourselves ends up controlling us from the dark. And until you bring that darkness into the light, it will run your life. It will pick your lovers. It will write your story. And you'll call it fate. That's why shadow work isn't optional. It's necessary. It's the only way out of the cycle. It's not about blame or revenge or psychoanalyzing someone else's wounds. It's about turning inward and asking, why did I stay so long? Why did I think I could fix her? What part of me needed her to choose me to feel enough? Because those questions, they lead somewhere deeper, to your own unmet needs, your own unspoken fears, your own desire to feel chosen, seen, loved, no matter the cost. And that's where your healing begins, not with another woman, not with another chance, but with the courage to face the mirror, and this time, not break it. Shadow work isn't easy. It asks you to sit with discomfort, to feel the pain without numbing it, to relive the wound, and choose not to let it define you. But on the other side of that work is freedom, real freedom, the kind that doesn't beg to be picked, the kind that doesn't tolerate emotional scraps, the kind that doesn't confuse adrenaline for affection. When you do the work, you stop bleeding on people who didn't cut you, you stop chasing people who were never meant to stay, and you start becoming who you were always meant to be. Whole, grounded, unshakable, because when your shadow is no longer in charge, your life stops repeating the same story with a different name and the same ending. If you're ready to face your shadow, type, "I'm doing the work," because no one else can do it for you. But you won't be alone. You've seen the pattern. You've lived the heartbreak. You've been the mirror, the placeholder, the temporary cure. And now the question isn't, why did she do it? It's, what do I do now? Because once you've seen the shadow, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending this was just bad luck, or bad timing, or bad chemistry. You know what this was. It was the unconscious in motion. Hers. And maybe yours too. Because the truth is, we all carry a shadow. Carl Jung didn't just write about it. He lived it. He warned that what we refuse to face within ourselves ends up controlling us from the dark. And until you bring that darkness into the light, it will run your life. It will pick your lovers. It will write your story. And you'll call it fate. That's why shadow work isn't optional. It's necessary. It's the only way out of the cycle. It's not about blame or revenge or psychoanalyzing someone else's wounds. It's about turning inward and asking, why did I stay so long? Why did I think I could fix her? What part of me needed her to choose me to feel enough? Because those questions, they lead somewhere deeper, to your own unmet needs, your own unspoken fears, your own desire to feel chosen, seen, loved, no matter the cost. And that's where your healing begins, not with another woman, not with another chance, but with the courage to face the mirror, and this time, not break it. Shadow work isn't easy. It asks you to sit with discomfort, to feel the pain without numbing it, to relive the wound, and choose not to let it define you. But on the other side of that work is freedom, real freedom, the kind that doesn't beg to be picked, the kind that doesn't tolerate emotional scraps, the kind that doesn't confuse adrenaline for affection. When you do the work, you stop bleeding on people who didn't cut you, you stop chasing people who were never meant to stay, and you start becoming who you were always meant to be, whole, grounded, unshakable. Because when your shadow is no longer in charge, your life stops repeating the same story with a different name and the same ending. If you're ready to face your shadow, type, "I'm doing the work," because no one else can do it for you. But you won't be alone.